Well, hello, this is Steve Samuel from Design Visionaries, and this video is about the Draw Shape command. And the Draw Shape command in NX allows you to do some very artistic work. And NX is really a great program when you're doing industrial design. It's a fantastic product design program, but it actually has really great surfacing and really great techniques that you can use for industrial design. Now, as an industrial designer myself, I do appreciate the ability to create a hand sketch. And, when you are doing industrial design, there's lots of tools that you can use on a computer to sketch various things. But I find that even today, a pencil on actual paper can be a benefit. And you can do this kind of thing on a tablet as well. And, there's nice techniques. You can have shading, you can have different brushes. But in many cases, that feeling of having the pencil in your hand and the feeling of, moving it across the paper, I believe, gives you something visceral and something that is to some degree irreplaceable. So with the pencil, the number 2 pencil, the infamous, not the infamous, but the famous number 2 pencil, the one that we took all those Scantron tests with, there's something about the friction on the paper also that gives you a feel for what you're doing, shading, erasing, etc. So anyway, once you have a nice sketch of what you're trying to do in 3D, you can then start to figure out what kind of profiles you might need and what kind of operations that you'll need in NX. So what I've done here is drawn a center line, and I'm trying to figure out what the dimensions will be for this product, and I'm sketching those in. So it's 9 inches from the very top of this product to kind of the center, and then 18 inches from the top to the very bottom, and things scale from there. So now, once I've got it in 3D, it gives me a really good feel for what I need to do in 2D. Of course, I'm only drawing one half of it, one half of the profile anyway. And this is the actual profile that's going to control the shape of the 3D solid model. I can mirror this, so there's no sense in drawing two halves of it. And this is a really nice way of doing freestyle and getting a good understanding for how it feels. Now on this product, there's going to also be some detail, some decorative shapes, and they will be embossed on the product. So once I'm done, I take a photo of the product and I bring that photo into NX. And the photo comes in with some scale that is unknown to me. And the very first thing I do is try to figure out what the scale is going to be. Or I should say, I'll figure out how to scale the image so it meets the 18 inches or whatever I have in mind. So I'll make a sketch on it and I'll put on a dimension and I'll look at the dimension. In this case, it was 16. And it's supposed to be 18. That length is supposed to be 18. So I'll multiply the width by 18 over 16. And then I'll move that line back to the center as a center line. It's supposed to be 18. You move it in, and there, it's perfect. So that's a very nice way of scaling your drawing. There are other ways. That's just my favorite way. And when I do that, I'm going to then use the Draw Shape command. I'm using Draw Shape because the Draw Shape has some very nice methods of creating and editing two-dimensional and even three-dimensional geometry. So instead of using just sketches and doing splines and sketches, the draw shape command is awesome because you can draw these entities just by almost like a pen, and then you can do edits to the entities once you're done to make them perfectly what you want. So it's more powerful than just a regular spline, let's say, because it has these stroke techniques, and it has this ability to edit and clean up the spline once you're done. So it's very easy to subtract points, to reduce the number of points that the spline is going through, and therefore get much smoother splines much faster. When you have a draw shape command, then you could use curves from draw, as this is showing, and then you have a very nice curve. And if you want to clean that up, you can use that same edit spline tool. And as you can see, I went from 5 points to 3 points, and then I just moved one of the points and I put the points end to end, and that's what I needed to have this whole thing work for me. Then I went into the sketcher and I just projected those curves into the sketcher, because the sketcher allows me to do certain geometry even a little easier. So that's why you really need more than one tool. Or I should say, it is really a benefit if you master a lot of different tools in NX, and they all are wonderful in appropriate situations. So nothing's absolute, you know. Some commands you almost never use, but boy, the day that you really need it, it's really fantastic. And then there are some commands that you're just using all the time. So here I'm mirroring the curves after having projected them, and then I extrude the curves. And I extrude the curves more than I need to, and I extrude them symmetrically. And then I go in and I pattern that extrude, and I rotate it 90 degrees and make another copy, so to speak. And so now I've got two copies. And now I do an intersect command between them. And that intersect command gives me almost a finished product. Now I can hide the image file, and this thing has the right shape, and I'm giving it a nice little wall thickness, so it is indeed a vase. And the vase now needs some decoration. It needs the decoration that were, or the decorations that were shown on the hand sketch. And so again, here I'm using the draw shape command, and the draw shape command gives us a rough estimate of where the final geometry is going to go. And I'm drawing leaves, and I'm going to draw the berries soon. So there's the third leaf, fourth, the berry, the first berry, second berry. And the draw shape is used with the curve from strokes, and once you have the curves from strokes, you can then convert it. So the power in this tool is quite awesome. And when I said draw shape, I really meant draw stroke. So you use the draw stroke, and then you use the curve from stroke. That's one way. Or you could just use draw curve. Either way, you get very impressive results. But then you can use the edit spline command to reduce the number of points, making it smoother, to do a number of things. And here I'm using the draw curve command, and I got rid of some of the draw strokes. They didn't serve me after all. And here, as you can see, the draw shape has a curve, a function, if you will, that ensures that when you make a curve, it turns it into a primitive. So that's why the circles are so easy to draw. And you should really get used to how powerful it is. As you can see, I can draw geometry that's a little bit messy, and then as soon as I say okay, it turns into something really kind of perfect. And that's certainly a huge benefit when we're proceeding, especially doing geometry that's supposed to be visually appealing. You've got to be careful with these tools. Sometimes they don't give you exactly what you might want. Just like that. There we go. And you can at some point edit the curve to put the heads to tails, or to finally close up a profile that you're going to extrude. Here I'm correcting one of the curves that went a little haywire, and if I'm not careful, I take too many points out of it, and when you take too many points out of it, you're redefining it, and with 2 points all you end up with is a straight line. So here we go. Here I'm just placing the two curves of the leaf together, so that when I create the leaf, all I've got to do is to do a subdivide face and a thicken and a few blends, and it'll look pretty good. If I had a little more time, I would get into the weeds with the leaves and really, try to make them even more realistic, but it actually is not so hard to do this, and it's pretty good. The workflow is very good, advantageous, and it looks like this effort is about done. Let's clean it up a little bit. Let's make the stem of that berry so it's kind of perpendicular. Let's make that leaf come to a nice point. We don't want any of the entities having a hole in them when you make a full loop. We're going to be extruding this, that's why. So we're just cleaning everything up, maybe add a little bit more geometry. The draw curve command is employed. As you can see, it wasn't perpendicular and my finger slipped off the mouse or whatever, so I got that little piece of geometry. There we go, a little cleanup. And there you go. Okay, one more draw curve to get that little berry in there. I was too shallow, so it just turned it into a line. There you go. Okay, let's try it one more time. There. Nice. Let's make sure it connects with the berry. And now we have the contours that are really beautiful and would be very difficult to do just in a 2D sketch environment. So the fact that you can be more artistic with the draw curve command is something that, the draw shape command really excites me. Draw shape. Now, once I've drawn the shapes, I can then do a divide face. The divide face command allows me to take the face of the vase and break it up so that I can use the thicken command. I'm saving here. Every now and then, you gotta save. What I find is if you spend about 3 hours doing something and for some reason you didn't save it, and then you have to do it all over again, when you first find out that, oh my gosh, it's the system went down or whatever, sometimes you panic. But in my experience, what tends to happen is anything that you take 3 hours to do the first time takes you probably 20 minutes to redo, because all the decisions are done and you know exactly which sets of commands to use. Anyway, here I'm doing the little cherries or little BBs, and I'm trying to save some time, so I'm blending them with a regular edge blend. Normally I wouldn't use edge blend as an industrial designer, but you know, this is a demo. So here I'm putting blends on all the little petals. And then I need to make the stems. And the stems, I would like the stems to be fat on the bottom and thin on the top. And so in order to accomplish that, I've got to use the swept command. And in order to use the swept command, one needs to have a section string, at least one section, and a guide string. And if you want it to taper, you could use a perimeter law. So here I'm putting a sketch on path. I'm putting a sketch at the end of the stem, giving it an arbitrary dimension. It matters not what it really is, because we're going to really set that by the perimeter law. So we use a swept feature here, and we select the little section that we made, and we select the drive curve, and we select perimeter law, and we select the linear type of perimeter law. And as you can see, we can have a different perimeter in the start and a different perimeter in the end. And so here, now we've selected two numerical values that make it taper as it goes along. So that's cool. Now we do it again, placing more, we're placing more circular sketches at the end of the drive curves. Very good. It's very quick. And each time you do it, you go into the sketch, and it's perpendicular to the end of the curve at that location. Just have to keep that in mind when you're doing the sweeps. You have to be judicious of the section that you're driving and where it's located and where it's going to and all of that. And it is fun if you really like design and if you really like to be imaginative. So NX is incredible. And so here I need to sweep, select the section. There it goes. Wait a second. There's one. Select the guide curve. There's one. Go to the perimeter law. Adjust the perimeter dimensions so that it tapers nicely. And say OK. And then do the rest of them. The sweep along a guide command cannot be used here because you don't have the ability to vary the section as it drives along the guide curve. And if this were a production job, I'd be a little bit more careful about my dimensions, etc. For instance, that one needs to be a little shorter, a little smaller, I should say. So when you unite it all together, it looks like a nice natural Y shape. And then here's another one to do. And I'm just going to go to the wireframe view so that I can more effectively see where this thing is being created, because it was giving us a little bit of frustration there. And there's the new section. There's a drive curve. There's the perimeter law. Say OK. And we have a beautiful vase with a design on it. With Control W, we turn off all the other entities so that we can kind of see what it looks like. It's looking pretty good. However, I do want that detail on each of the sides. And so I'm doing a pattern geometry. Pattern geometry is different from a pattern feature in that a pattern geometry will grab a bunch of stuff that could be really complex from a feature standpoint and just easily pattern that. Whereas when you're using pattern feature, if the features are very complex, like there's a bunch of subtracts and a bunch of edge blends and so on and so forth, there's lots of times when you can't get that to work. So here's the pattern geometry command, which is fantastic. I'm doing 4 total copies 90 degrees away. And then at some point I'm uniting it all together like that. Incidentally, when I did the thicken, I had the wherewithal not to unite that after the fact. And so now I'm comparing the finished product to the original sketch. And that looks pretty good. I really like the way that came out. And then, of course, it's always nice to give it some reflections and some shadows and some shading. One shading is the true shading editor. And another way of rendering it is in the render, it's the Ray Trace Studio. So there's the Ray Trace Studio. It's beautiful. And thanks for watching. This is Steve Samuel from Design Visionaries, and I appreciate your viewership. Please like and subscribe, and check our Design Visionaries YouTube channel every now and then, because we are trying to give really nice content on a weekly basis. Thank you.